Hi everybody and welcome.
I thought yesterday one of the themes that I felt was present and coming up are these various life quadrants. So how can I enjoy what I do while at the same time making it good for communities? Am I still productive? Still, after all these years, I have to cry when I think of it. And hi everyone. So it turns out that as of last night, we have a continuing influx of more interest of working in the middle. And we take that primarily as a compliment to the group and to the film team, because we might be less nervous to be who we are.
Yeah.
Right? And then, of course, the amazing presence of your genius facilitators plays a role around the world. To name the ghost role. And now we're in the second half. This is the beginning of the second half of the seminar.
Yeah.
I thought yesterday one of the themes that I felt was present and coming up are these various life quadrants. You're familiar a little bit with the life quadrant thing that especially comes out of now feminine studies. So there's like all kinds of indigenous concepts of like classical roles that happen within like feminine life quadrant. And I sort of like it because I'm also using it for myself. I find it very helpful, because it says there's the third quadrant is you're young and you want to have fun. You know the song Girls Just Want to Have Fun? Is after this life cycle. Because you know that very soon you're going to be bound into having to care for someone, which is a child. And then the second life quadrant is motherhood. So motherhood now in these modern doula approaches is no longer identified with necessarily having a baby, but the role of caring for someone. And it's a doula cycle, and these doula cycles are also applied. You could always apply cross-gender. For example, when I was hanging out with the Australian Aboriginal community where my teacher was, I was told that frequently older men, when there was something happened to women, would start nursing babies. Mm-hmm. And I was like young. I thought, men nursing babies, how? And you always says, well, it's very easy. There's all kinds of herbs that you can take, and then you start to lactate. And I thought, no. And then actually looked at the science. It's actually like relatively simple, right? It's like a hormonal thing, and there's so much done with herbs and things like that. But now it's more the role of the carer. So you come into a phase in your life where you start to care for someone, and then comes the whole inner conflict. How much do I care for others? And how much do I still have fun? So how can I enjoy what I do while at the same time making it good for communities? Right? And then comes the third cycle, which is matriarchy. So now you're a matriarch. meaning you now understand and have a deeper understanding of the conflicts that appear between caring for someone and self-care, and you can help and rule others. And it's an eldership role where you can be nourishing, but at the same time say, no, this is no longer good. No, we're not going to do that. No, this is not good because it's not good for the community. So it's a matriarchal principle. And then comes the fourth cycle, which is the elder person, where you now are detached from it. You're no longer directly in a leadership position. So, and you're closer to death, which allows you to foster and nourish grandchildren, meaning the new leadership that's coming. You can support that, but also you have now access to certain herbs that allows people, that you can help people to die if the pain is too big. So with other words, you can also come in now and say, okay, this part of the organization is finished, goodbye. So you have a freedom to support processes that are dying by making them more painless, because you have the detachment. You realize that's a normal life cycle. Eventually everything dies, and eventually new things get born, and you have more detachment how you come into that in terms of your own community and things like this. Do you guys like that? Yeah. So some of you like it. And I think it's interesting. And I thought yesterday a lot of these things came up also with, am I still productive?
In getting older, it's more important for me over the years what I do in my life. It's important for me to consider very well the meaning of what I do in my work. I just have the feeling of running out of time.
Yes? So there's a general high dream. When your parents die, for example, on the deathbed, they'll have an insight that they weren't the best parents, and they will try to resolve a conflict. Yes, or let's say you had a father who was very busy, and then you will think now the father is dying, and he will want to have the whole family come together and then tell the family how much he actually loved them and how much he was present for them, right? And then the mother, as a mother, see, this is the whole second cycle. When you start to caring for someone, you also learn to make boundaries as a mother. You also have to make boundaries. You have to feed the baby, plus you learn the basic leadership skills in the sense that certain things can't wait. For example, if like I coach both female and male leaders, for example, female leaders as a whole, in my mind, statistically, not individually, but statistically, are better with economics, and they better understand that something has to happen now. Whereas men can say, okay, this is good, we're going to have to do that maybe in a month. And if you're a woman, you can't say, yeah, I mean, my children are at the moment hungry, but I'm going to cook for them in a month. So, you know, there's certain tasks that have to be dealt with now, if you like it or not. So it changes sort of a different attitude towards leadership, also towards economics. But then I was also thinking, when the research we did at the time when people die, that was a big thing for me because I was like in my early 30s. And then men on their deathbed regretted that they didn't play more. You know, they didn't say, oh, I wish I would have spent more time with my family. But they said, I can't believe I never bought that motorcycle. You understand why? It's like watch, for example, I'm thinking of your work and my work and male work yesterday. Like, we are supposed to be providers in one way or another, and we don't have time to play. Yes? So make time to play. I thought that about your work. Find something that you enjoy with your, that's where you use like a movement thing.
Yeah.
You like dancing?
Yeah,
You could go in some dance class.
that's true.
And then with women, it was romance. I wish I had more time for romance, or I wish I would have used some opportunities for romance. And I often say that because for me, that's really when it went home. So I was a keynote speaker at a psychological conference in Melbourne, in Australia, that was on death and dying. And that was part of my lecture. And I said that, and someone had come with their mother who was maybe in her 80s. And I said that, still after all these years, I have to cry when I think of it. And this beautiful woman stood up. It was a huge congress hall with about 600-700 people or whatever, stood up and said, yes, but you don't understand. I couldn't. I had children.
Oh my God.
And he had these beautiful black eyes. Oh. And this beautiful black hair. But I was married. I had children. I couldn't. And I thought, that's a big one, don't you think? Like, make space for romantic moments in your life. Sometimes it can be relationship. Sometimes it can take a minute and look at the moon. Or look at a single lamppost in the middle of a city who is radiating the loneliness that we all feel at times, with a slight moon fading in the background, and enjoy it. So I thought I wanted to bring that in about yesterday.
It caused me like the dreaming in the lamppost, and I started to have this space of dreaming and romance. So that's why I'm coming to you slower. Yeah. Aww. That was so sweet. Thank you.
Even if it's just 20 seconds, it's still precious.
Yeah, it is.
I know. So I want to switch because we have a full program.
Absolutely.
So the other thing is, I don't know if how many of you had thoughts about this last 2 days, that sometimes in your life you have one single issue, and you feel that's a problem. And then there's also another process that you might have seen, where the issue that you have is very broad. And it's hard to start on anything because it's so broad. Mm-hmm. For example, you say, I have anxiety issues. That is such a broad term. You don't know what people mean by that. Or people say, I feel I don't belong here in many ways, and I feel I'm frequently not connecting to what's happening or to people. This is sort of like very broad kind of things. And one of the issues is they're very hard at times to work on for the person. For example, I have anxiety. So my anxiety starts in the morning when I start to think of the day and what could happen to me during the day. It's hard to just work on that, because if you start to work on that, right away a voice will come in. Are you still following me?
Yes.
Like, do you recognize yourself a little bit in this? No. A voice comes in that says, well, it's not just the morning. I mean, And then later you have this, and then later you have that.
And the other day you had this
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
That was a little bit
That was,
something
yeah,
else.
and actually you
the
didn't have it
same
in the
idea.
morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you follow this? And as a result, nothing ever changes. And if something changes, the voice comes in and says, okay, maybe now you know what to do in the morning, so what? The day has 18 hours where you constantly have to deal with that issue. How many of you somehow resonate a little bit with, in one way or another, with this? So about some of you. Now, we also train in DDI, and it's inspired also by Castaneda and shamanism, which is we separate things out and say, the shamans call it controlled folly, controlled craziness. So you do something crazy, it's a self-discipline issue. For 1 week, you pretend that it's only the morning. You work on that particular morning edge. And for the whole week, anytime there is an opportunity to practice the new identity, you use it. It doesn't matter if it's in a cafe, if it's in a relationship, if it's with yourself. You just practice it for a whole week as much as possible. So why do we do that? Well, deep democracy says that you are a physio, psycho, spiritual whole being. You are one whole. And in principle, you are fluid. If you watch children, for example, they're very fluid. They just go along with whatever happens in the moment, and they focus on whatever is interesting to them. Yes? Like they have their own interest. And you learn in the beginning, I think it's also an old thing we haven't shown in years. You see, for example, a parent and a child, and they're walking together. Mm-hmm. And it goes like this. The parent is going over to Ilaria, and the child goes. Can you follow this? So, and then later, this becomes one. Mm. This one is going through life, and your child, your non-socialized part, right? Then it looks different. So then later, when you grown up and you go with your partner, you go like. Yes? Same idea, but it's less fluid. So actually, if you work on one edge, you will naturally get access to all of those issues in the back and even more. You don't need to work on the whole because that unfolds naturally. You start to work on your grip. You can't help it. You're eventually gonna want to hang on something. And if you ever manage to hang on something for more than 20 or 30 seconds, you can't help it. You will want to start to pull yourself up and realize you can't. You don't have to think, okay, I'm gonna get in shape. All you gotta do is just start on one little thing at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it happens. Till it becomes a habit. We know that takes how long?
6 weeks.
It's not very long. Okay, that's it.
That's
what I wanted to say.
I love it.
So when I facilitate, there are different kind of methods I use with the group, and I found out about Arnold Mindell and process work and and all this. I'm really touched with it to it. So I sometimes briefly start to use elements out of this, but it's really rarely, because I also, when I was sitting here now, I think, okay, I probably need a different kind of state, or I need another. How do I shift from a facilitating with a liberating structure or whatever to find out, okay, hey, let's use process work and probably do this kind of role play here now. And it is a question. That's when I have the feeling, okay, then I have to switch to another kind of awareness, to another kind of. Something has to be different.
Like now you were here for a couple of days, right?
Yeah.
Was there anything that you just loved or you enjoyed? Just one thing that you saw in the middle.
I enjoyed it. Yesterday there was a lot of role play.
This one, you like that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's like, try it. Whenever you see an opportunity and you think, oh, I could use role play here, try it.
But when I was here yesterday dropping in and saw you guys, I thought, okay, this is so chaotic.
You thought it was chaotic?
Yeah.
Yeah, you think your life is more ordered than that?
Wait, but I was, because you said you loved the role play yesterday.
Some parts, but some were also really chaotic.
Yeah, I know.
I thought, okay,
I know.
Do I have to switch on different kind of senses or find a certain point inside me?
So what you're saying is the chaos, what you mean is you saw like partially non-linear interactions and things like this?
Yes, totally non-linear.
Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good descriptions.
So in my limited experience, you're saying I'm drawn to it. Mm-hmm. My classical background and approach is very different. And it's somewhat different.
Yeah.
And then I think I have to be in a particular state to be able to follow that. Yeah, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it's a state. If you want to learn process work, like we have a 5-year-long training, and that gets you to the point where you sort of start as a practitioner, but you're not yet a senior practitioner because it's a complex science. But you don't need to learn process work. All you need to do is be yourself. You said, well, I like the role play, but for me, I would want it a little bit more structured than in your work. You should, when you start to feel, I could try a role play here, you could say, okay, I want to use something that I saw in process work. It might look a little bit chaotic, but I'm trying to make it as structured as possible, and then make roles and then set them up. And then you ask people at the end, so how did you guys like it? And then some people will say, we didn't like it, and then you can say, what didn't you like? And then they'll teach you, you should be a little bit more like this or that. What do you think? And have fun with it. If you're trying to get it or struggle with it, it's beautiful. But try to have fun with it. It's much better to learn like that. How does it sound?
That's a good answer.
Now, I'm used to that, Like I do things and then people say, yeah, but it's not going to work. This is not going to work you can't do that when you come into our corporation. Yeah. And then I said, why not? I said, the people are not going to go along with that. Yeah. I have the vice president of Audi saying, you can't come to our group like that. And I said, yeah, I know why. Let me take that role. You can't come to our group like that. And I took over the role, and then he didn't realize, because you can't go in one role without polarizing the other. Do you know? So the moment you switch a role, you force the other one to switch roles too. They have no control over it. Mm. Did you know? Yeah. Because this is a mathematical issue. You can't have two positions, two roles holding on one side. So before you know it, he got in a whole thing. And then he said, wow. I said, yeah, I think you just did it. He said, wow. Yeah, that was good. We did a retreat in Switzerland with a non-profit. And you know, Switzerland doesn't have generals in the army. They have like Oberstdivisionär. And he was basically a general, a retired general. And then he was in the board. And then the group said, so he's going to come. And everybody was terrified because they took him for his name and his influence, but because of his attitude. And then we had like 3 really wild days. And it was really fun. And the guy loved it. Mm-hmm. And then we thought, at one point, it's been now like 15 years ago, I thought, okay, I make these recommendations of like people on the website because it is sort of unconventional what we do, and we can have like all these testimonials on the website by serious people to show that actually we're doing serious work. So I wrote to the guy and said, I would love to get like a testimonial from you. And he said, yeah, I would love to write you one. And then we got this testimonial. I was on a 3-day retreat with Ellen and Max Schupbach. They came in and corrected all the wrong attitudes. And were very successful at it. And I thought, okay, this is a big compliment. I don't think we want to have that on our website.
Call us in, we'll correct all your wrong attitudes.
So, but I think the reason I'm saying that is like, it's a path, don't you think? Mm-hmm. And there is not one thing of process work or one style. So I think DDI, we focus a lot on like diversity and working in different cultures. And DDI got started because of a conversation I had with a process work colleague of mine who said, process work only works with people that know about it and only works with people in global north who can actually have the scientific background and can do it. And I said, no, process work was developed on the basis by Arnold Mindell that physics and the universal law of physics explain what happens on the planet, and human behavior can't be excluded as a separate thing outside of the universe. So what is true in modern physics has to be also happening on an awareness level in the human being. So as a sense, in that sense, process work should work everywhere. And then my colleague said, no way. And then we made a bet. I said, okay, tell me a place where you know it can't work, and we'll set up a training there, and we'll prove to you that it can work. Now I have to say, okay, this happened after we both had 1 or 2 beers or something like this. So, and then, but actually the next day we took it serious, and that's how we ended up in Palestine. Mm-hmm. And we had an amazing time in Palestine. It was really, really a huge learning. And it wasn't like, yes, we proved it. It was really, really hard and complicated and beautiful. And we made lifelong friends, have lifelong friends there, and learned so much. So far, I feel I haven't seen yet the challenge where I feel theoretically, maybe me as a facilitator, I wasn't up to it, but where I feel theoretically process work wouldn't have actually been able to create cool spots and bring more awareness into the whole situation. So I feel good that I said that because it's what I'm thinking. Will I regret it later that I said that? Yes. But
which thing will you regret?
That in my experience, my understanding of process work, I haven't tried out yet in really, we've been in really complicated situations with guns pulled at us and what have you. Where I felt this is beyond the basic theory of awareness role rotations and life myth. And that in the background of that are what looks chaotic, in other words, is highly patterned. There's no chaos in the world. It's highly patterned. But I think it's a structural approach. We're using a structural approach, meaning the patterns are hidden behind the consensus reality. So we look at consensus reality, which a lot of it is linear, and we start to think that's an order. And I think in process work, you're looking for the hidden order in the background, and you follow that, which at time, then, which you see that here, brings like unexpected creative solutions.
And also in how I understand, you can't bring process work to something.
It's already there.
Because it's already there, and it just has, you can find methods or ways that you can help to bring out the hidden structure.
Yeah.
But you're not creating something or doing something.
Yeah. You don't have to explain in a corporation about roles. People do it all the time. They have a meeting and then afterwards they say, I can't believe, did you hear what he said? Well, yeah, but he had to say that. I mean, he's the CEO, so he has to say that. With other words, what they're saying is, well, he's just playing a role. Don't take it too serious.
Yeah.
And the other one says, well, I was offended that there's a role that's not being talked about and not being processed about, because actually this role speaks against the role that I'm in.
Yeah.
So group processes just make visible what's anyhow happening.
I want to add one thing to it. However, or discovering the underlying structure and bringing it out is a complex thing to do. There's like a lifelong learning.
If you want to understand patterns, it's actually simple. All you got to do is look for what's beautiful here. Just look for what's beautiful. And if you don't know what to do, you can say to the person, I loved your role play. And the person says, no, I thought the role play really sucked. And you can say, yeah, but I loved how your feet moved in it when you're like, go back and forth. And they say, oh, that? Yeah, but we see, I do that because I'm a boxer. Really? Wow. How did you become so strong? And before you know it, you have like the whole process unfolds.
Wow.
But you can't start out by thinking, I know what's happening here, and I have to figure out what's happening here so I can do it. You look happy.
That was really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
That was so beautiful how that, perfect. Meaning now we start to work with people.
Yeah.